It's great to be with everyone. Platt, real quick, one factual error. Not the longest serving AG. I'll be number two, the second longest serving. There was one guy who actually serves in Iowa who's running for re-election. He actually served as Attorney General in Iowa in the 1970s. When Bill Clinton was AG of Arkansas, he served with Bill Clinton. That's all. He's almost 80. If he loses this cycle, then I will be the longest serving Attorney General in the country, currently serving Attorney General in the country. That's the only fact we should hear. Listen, first off, it is great to be with all of you. I used to be an active Rotarian. When I got this gig and started traveling, I wasn't able to stay with my current club. But I was a founding member of West Metro Rotary in West Columbia, South Carolina. We used to adhere to the five-way test. We came up with the five-way test. Have y'all ever heard of the five-way test? Is it fair? Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And then the fifth rule is, will I get caught? And so we added that one as a tag along. So if you can pass the five-way test, you're good to go, right? Probably not good for the Attorney General to say that. But anyway, Platt, thank you for the invitation to come and speak, and it's great to be with all of you. When I was driving down here, I asked Platt what he thought you all would want to hear about. And one of the things he thought I should start with is a story that I've told his Citadel cadets in their course curriculum. And that is how I became, or my origin story for how I fell in love with the idea of being a prosecutor, which led me to ultimately be the AG. And before I jump into that story, I do want to give a shout out to Bobby Bernstein, whose brother was my boss. Colonel Bernstein, Barry Bernstein, who does work for me now. I worked for him for 7 years in the National Guard. He was a state judge advocate, so I've been with the Bernstein family for 20 plus years, and what a great family they are. And I do enjoy serving with Barry. He's appearing right now before the Legislative Oversight Committee on their annual review of our office. So he's keeping me between the ditches, and I appreciate that.
What that means is he knows where the skeletons are buried.
That's right. And if he doesn't want to be a skeleton, I'm kidding. He does a great job. He is I call him Ubercrat. He gets way in the weeds on bureaucracy. Ubercrat. Not a bureaucrat, an Ubercrat. He gets into the weeds of bureaucracy and helps us identify where deficiencies and inefficiencies are so that we can make government be better run for all of you, the taxpayer. So back to my origin story. I always knew I wanted to be in some form of public service, and honestly, when I became a soldier, when I joined the National Guard in '96, I felt that checked that box, obviously, into becoming a Rotarian, and that was a form of public service in my opinion, and then I ultimately became a prosecutor. I did not know I wanted to be a prosecutor when I was in law school. My dad had been a real estate attorney for 25 years, and served in the General Assembly, and then later went to Congress, and that's when he gave up his practice. But I thought I was going to go into the family business and do real estate closings. That seemed like a pretty interesting kind of law. But then I clerked for a judge in Lexington, South Carolina, and fell in love with the pageantry of the courtroom. Seeing people go in there and verbally, engage one another on cases, criminal, civil. I just love that idea. And so I decided to deviate and go into the criminal prosecution arena. And several years later, I found myself as an assistant attorney general in the office of the attorney general. I had been an intern in the 90s when Charlie Condon, who's an attorney here in town, was attorney general. And I came back under Henry McMaster and served as a state grand jury prosecutor. Prosecuted a lot of child sex crime cases. That was before I was a father. One particular case involved a young woman who had been sexually abused between the ages of 12 and 15. And that case got conflicted out of Spartanburg County and came to the AG's office, and I took it and prosecuted it up in Spartanburg for that agency. And here are the basic facts. Between the ages of 12 and 15, this girl's being molested. I'll skip all the gritty details. You don't need to know. You can figure it out. At age 17, she came forward and told people about it. At age 19, it made it to trial. So 7 years removed from the beginning of her abuse, she's sitting in court. It was an 8-day-long trial. It was very graphic, very hard. It was a full courtroom. At the end of the trial, the jury found the defendant guilty of the abuse he had committed against this young woman. And of course, we stood up before the judge, and the judge was reading the verdict. And as he was reading the verdict, which was 18 years in prison, the young woman began to cry. And I asked her, I leaned over to her while she was beginning to cry. Her eyes were getting a little watery. I said, well, are you okay? I thought this is what you wanted. We worked, we prepped for months for this case. And before I tell you what she said, little fact that I didn't tell you initially was that not only was this man a retired police officer, he was the girl's grandfather. And this is why that's important, because for the 4 years of abuse, if she ever got to the point where he thought she was gonna say something, he would say things to her like, no one's gonna believe you because I'm a cop and you're a kid. Or if you tell anyone, all I need is one juror to believe me, and I walk. Or, you know, you'll split the family up. You'll destroy our family, which honestly, that's the one thing he was right on. It totally split the family down the middle. You know, half believed, half didn't. And so as we're walking out, and I asked her the question, why are you upset? She says, Alan, you don't understand. I'm not upset because I'm sad. I mean, I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because I'm happy. You see, for the first time in my life, I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor.